Hola chicos, buenas tardes a todas las personas que nos están viendo aquí por primera vez. Esta es una serie que estoy llevando a cabo todos los miércoles y algunos jueves para competencias para personas que están interesados en competir. And now I'm going to switch to English because my guests today are from Canada and both speak English, but I thought that it was like extremely important for all of us to get to meet them and ask them all these questions that you guys have been asking me about. Even like last week, right after I did this same show with Zeke, people asking me about tricks, people asking me, what is a trick? What is a play? And I'm like, you know what? You're in luck because next week, meaning today, we have Eric and Kelly answering all the questions that anybody can have about competition. I'm gonna wait a little bit to see if more people connect. I'm gonna switch it to Spanish. Yeah. Este es un programa que vamos a estar haciendo todos los miércoles y aquí tengo a los jueces mundiales de todas las competencias como World Salsa Summit, tienen todas las competencias de Canadá, no solo de salsa y bachata, pero también las de ballroom. Y quiero que los conozcan, chicos. Ellos se llaman Eric and Kelly, son de Canadá y de la ciudad de Calgary. Tienen también su propia competencia internacional de manera presencial y también de manera online. Y bueno, aquí están ellos para que les pregunten para que tengan todas sus dudas que puedan tener acerca de los trucos y de todas esas cosas de competencia. Entonces, voy a empezar. I'm gonna start by asking Eric and Kelly to just tell us about your experience with competitions. When did you start in this competition world as competitors and then as judges and the whole thing?
Well, I started as a ballroom dancer myself. I started dancing when I was 6 years old, and I competed in ballroom all my life. Then when I moved, I'm from Montreal originally. When I moved to Calgary 22 years ago, I met Kelly, and then I started to do salsa at that point. Then we started to perform. We did the trio. I don't know if you remember, Gabby, the trio that we did with Kelly and David and I. Yeah, so that's kind of what got us started. It wasn't for competition, but the trio is what kind of put us on the map a little bit for salsa, that got us kind of known internationally. And then
I remember.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. And then from there, around that same time, that's where salsa competition kind of started on the scene. Because at first it was just congresses. There wasn't many competitions. And then Kelly and I Kelly and David first competed at the Club Mayan for 2-3 years in a row. That's a long time ago. So they
Tell me years so that people can get like an idea of when you guys did the trio. What year was that? And then when you started competing in the Mayan, because people right now a lot of people don't know about the Mayan, but that was the ultimate competition. So tell us about that so that people can get this perspective.
Okay, yes, well, I guess I've been competing, not anymore, but I started competing more than 20 years ago in salsa. So first with David, who's another taller gentleman, and then with Eric. And yes, we've done a lot of the salsa competitions, both as competitors and now more so as judges. But everything from Club Mayan was a great competition in Los Angeles that had lots of international competitors and lots of really well-known dancers that danced there. And so lucky enough to do that, as well as, we've competed at lots of places, including the ESPN World Salsa Championships, the IDO World Salsa Championships, the World Latin Dance Cup. Of course, now we judge at the World Salsa Summit and also at some fantastic competitions all over the world. Yeah, we've been doing this a long time. So 20 years ago would be salsa competitions for me. And yeah, Eric and I, we really, really enjoy being able to come from the competitor's perspective at the judging table for sure, because we spent many years as competitors, so we definitely know what goes into it.
And we were lucky because as soon as we retired from competition, then we started to judge right away. So that's kind of been our after career has been great that way.
Tell me about the other competitions because people know you as the World Salsa Summit judges, but they don't know about all these other competitions that you're constantly judging. And actually, you're the head judge of so many other competitions all in, around Canada, like in the whole country. And that they're not only salsa and bachata, right? So tell me about those competitions.
Well, I'm a certified ballroom judge as well, so I judge a lot of ballroom competitions as well. So that keeps us busy. For salsa, I mean, all the major competition in Canada we're involved in, starting with ours, the Calgary International Salsa Congress. Our competition has grown a lot in the last few years. We mostly organize this one. We don't judge so much there. We're just busy running everything, but we hire a lot of great judges for it. Then the Canada Salsa and Bachata Championship in Toronto. We just came back from that actually 2 weeks ago. This is a great competition in Toronto. Then there's the Montreal Salsa Convention in Montreal as well. And then the really cool one we do as well is the Las Vegas Super Salsa and Bachata Congress that has the Ultimate Latin Championship. Is that how it's called? Yeah. And then we're head judges there as well. And it's a really cool competition, has a lot of great dancers from across the world. And they do things a little bit differently as well. They have the, what's the division that anything goes?
Oh, the Mega Teams
They
division.
have
It's
this-
so exciting.
Yeah, the mega team divisions. It's a pretty cool one where there is no rules. All the questions you're having today doesn't apply to any of that. That's super easy for that one.
That's-
So it's fun. So
Yeah.
we're judging a lot of things. So that's cool.
I'm gonna switch a little bit to Spanish so
Yeah.
that people watching us now or watching it later can refer to this. And since right now all the competition, the Mexican competitions are happening right now. We just had Fusión, and then next month there's gonna be Eurozone. So we want people to know all this and to have all their questions. I'm gonna translate a little bit of what you said. Ellos han sido jueces de todas las competencias habidas y por haber, todas en Canadá. Ellos están certificados para juecear ballroom en Canadá y entonces ellos pues, para eso se dedican bastante a eso. Ellos empezaron bailando salsa haciendo precisamente cabaret. Entonces por eso ellos saben tanto y por eso los quise invitar para que ustedes les pregunten todas estas dudas que tienen acerca de los trucos y las competencias. Y también están hablando de que ellos son jueces de la competencia de Las Vegas que se llama Ultimate Championship. Y esa competencia tiene una parte que está bien interesante que se llama Mega Teams. Y esa parte no tiene reglas, o sea, me puedes meter absolutamente todo. Y yo los quiero invitar también para que chequen esa competencia. Se lleva a cabo por lo general en julio y es una súper competencia para todos los mexicanos que puedan cruzar la frontera. Yo les recomiendo que se organicen y se metan a esa competencia porque pueden bailar hip hop, pueden bailar flamenco, ballet, lo que quieran, circo, lo que sea, y bailar salsa también. Entonces, y bueno, vamos a empezar. Tengo aquí unos, let me see if I have some. Oh, yes. Nate, I want you to know that I just gave a Spanish advertising to your competition, and not because I knew that you were here, just so you know that it was like pure, like intent from the bottom of my heart. I'm inviting all the Mexicans to join your competition because it's such a great outlet for creative people because, we have been suffering from people copying other people because there is no competitions that allow us, or that at least that's what people say, that all competitions want the same thing, and that's the reason why they justify copying everybody, right? So your competition, I say, that is a really great outlet for creativity, and because as Kelly and Eric said, anything goes, and that's a really, really good way to produce like a good spectacle because you guys, and then the price is really high. The price is really high, so I said, all Mexicans who have a visa, please pack your bags and go to Vegas because that competition is something. Yeah.
Yeah, Nate,
So
you're
let it
right.
be clear that I didn't know he was here.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying that too. Like you got here like 3 minutes too late because we're going through the list of all the competition that Kelly and I, and then we finished with the Ultimate Latin Dance Championship at the Las Vegas Super Salsa Congress, and we were talking about all the divisions and competition and how the mega team division is cool because one of the topic we're going to discuss today with Gabby is all the rules, what you're allowed to do, not to do. And in the mega team, there are no rules, so it's a super fun to judge because we just judge the creativity. We don't have to look at all the rules. We just judge and have fun with it, you know.
Yeah, it's so great. I'm gonna read another one. This is Raúl. He says, "Hola chicos, saludos desde Suiza." There's a guy from Switzerland who is speaking Spanish, and then he's saying hello. I think he's from, if I'm not mistaken, he's from Honduras. So I don't know. Raúl, ¿hablas español? Digo, ¿hablas inglés? Eric y Kelly son unos jueces que saben un montón de reglas, así que alóquense, tienen todas las preguntas, yo se las hago a ellos, sobre todo de cosas de tricks y de flares. Voy a preguntar, last time I let Nate say, he says, we're different, Eric and Kelly are the best. Yes, I agree. Yeah, so I think that this links right into the very first question that I have. Um, uh, for you and for all the judges that have all this, promoters, judges, and everybody who is a competitor, who has this experience, why do you recommend competition, or what benefits does becoming a competitor bring?
Well, I mean, the first thing is like it pushes you, right? It pushes yourself where when you put together performance, of course, you want to do the best you can all the time. You practice hard, but if you're being judged, it just takes it to a whole different level where you have to practice hard. You have to be at your best, and you have that pressure of being judged all the time. So of course, you're going to push a lot harder when you know it's a competition. Other factor to which we might be talking about that a little later as well, where if you're putting together a routine for competition, you have to showcase some different elements. So it forces you to work on things that may be slightly out of your comfort zone. As to if you just put together a show or performance, or if you're just social dancing, we tend to focus on the things we're good at and focus on the things we like because it's just a performance. When it's competition, you need to be able to do things more variety into what you're bringing to the table because the judges don't want to see just one thing, right? So you need a bigger package. And I think competition forces you to be more versatile and bring different aspects to your repertoire.
Yes, I mean, we love competition. It's what we do with most of our careers, whether it's running competitions or judging competitions. And being a competitor, you always have a goal that you're working towards. So it keeps you very disciplined in the studio. Also, you're opening yourself up to feedback from some of the best dancers in the world. And that's always going to improve your dancing. And for a lot of newer professionals or amateur dancers, it's a really good platform to be able to get yourself seen and get yourself known in the community that otherwise maybe you wouldn't have a show at a particular congress, but you can always enter the competition, and that's how you begin to be known and get feedback and just get better and better.
That's a really, really great perspective. It is true. I mean, it makes you better, and it also makes you it gets you known. Now I wanna ask you something that like just came up to in my mind right now when you were saying getting out of your comfort zone. How would you recommend for people to get out of the competitions, or like start trying new competitions where they know that they don't have a chance? Meaning, like when you get comfortable competing in the same competition because you already know the judges, because you already know how to compete in that competition, you know the rules, you have a chance to win because not everybody goes there. How would you recommend, or do you even recommend people to go to other competitions, even if they're far, or even if they're smaller, or even if they're harder?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
take that first. So I mean, to move to a different competition, maybe region or size, or one that has different judges, or a competition that's different than you're used to, absolutely, you're just going to get a different type of feedback from different judges. And actually, some of mine and Eric's favorite events are the ones that, you know, we go to for the first time and we meet a new group of people, a new group of competitors, and they actually get more out of the competition because they don't do it quite as often or at the same competitions. So sometimes putting yourself out there at a smaller event or a newer event, or even one that you don't normally go to, it just gets you known by a whole bunch more people, and also gets you feedback from a lot of coaches that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. I mean, back in the day, we had to fly everywhere to take lessons and get feedback from coaches. But now, you know, you can go to a competition event, you can compete, and then you can book a lesson with some of the judges or some of the teachers, and you can instantly get some of that feedback of what you're doing.
And I think as you do, the more competition, the better. The more different competitions, the better. One thing we have to do is to do our homework, is that depending in different places in the world, some different competitions has different rules. So it's important to look at that ahead of time and prepare yourself. If a good choreography is a choreography for competition is going to be good for every competition. If it's well put together, don't need to change your choreography. There might need some minor adjustments depending on the rules in different event. Also, sometimes it depends on the category that are being offered. So sometimes there's just a salsa open division, or sometimes it's broken down in cabaret on 1 or on 2. So then it changes a little bit how you could prepare for those competitions in different situations. So you just gotta do your homework and do a bit of research and contact the organizer. It's our job to answer your questions. If anybody wants to go to any competition, contact the organizers, and they have to send you the right information to prepare accordingly.
Yes, I have to translate you gave us so much gold here. So you say that it was because of the feedback, you get a better feedback the more you go to different competitions. You become a better dancer because you're pushing yourself to get out of your comfort zone, right? And then you also get yourself known. Is that correct? Okay, so I'm going to say this in Spanish. Eric y Kelly nos están diciendo que la razón por la cual es importante competir es porque te retas a ti mismo a salirte de tu zona de confort. Entonces siempre vas a estar, los jueces te van a estar juzgando. Tú sabes que tienes que hacerlo mejor cada vez. Por otra parte, puedes tener mucho retroalimentación de los jueces. Y una cosa que les pregunté fue si nos recomiendan entrar a muchas competencias diferentes en las cuales a lo mejor no nos sentimos muy a gusto, o a lo mejor sabemos que no vamos a ganar, y ellos recomiendan que sí. The more, the merrier. Entre más competencias, mejor, porque más conoces a diferentes tipos de jueces, diferentes reglas, y entonces cuando llegues al punto en el que una pieza de competencia sea tan buena que pueda ganar en todas las competencias, entonces tú ya vas a encontrar ese nivel que tanto estás buscando, ¿no? Yeah. Now, talking about rules, I want to get to this. And you mentioned every competition has different rules. However, one thing that I noticed is that there is always a rule or many rules surrounding tricks and assisted moves. And there's so much confusion, guys. I don't even know how to word a question. If not, I think just like enlighten us with that. Like, you know how people get confused about it. What questions do people have? What frequently asked questions do you get around assisted moves and tricks?
Okay, well, I guess the first thing to determine when you're competing is, are you competing in a division that limits the amount of lifts and assisted moves you do? So quite often there's just an open competition, and in an open competition, there are no limitations on the number of tricks or lifts or assisted moves that you do. Then there are competitions that break down the categories into like a cabaret division where you can have more assisted moves, and then some restricted divisions that have some restrictions around how many moves you can do. They want the focus to be mostly on the dancing, and they're going to limit the number of assisted moves you can do. I'll just make a really, really quick point. We spend a lot of time in the studio make sure if you're going to a competition that you read their rules page. And if you have questions, you submit your questions, because the organizers and the competition coordinators are very happy to put you in your best advantage to do well in the competition. But quite often we don't get the questions until people arrive at the event, when it's a little bit late to be changing choreography.
Exactly. And so for the classic division, so anytime there's an on-1 or an on-2 division, then this is where there's no tricks, obviously, no lifts allowed. So the simple rule is obviously if your feet leave the floor, that's a deduction. There's never a disqualification. It's a big deduction. So if there's a deduction, it's impossible to win a competition with a deduction. It has to be strong enough the deduction that it affects your score. So it's you can't win a competition if you not cheated, but if you did something wrong. So the deductions are big in those cases. Now for the assisted tricks, the reason for that, and to be honest, like I didn't make up those rules. I'm not a big fan of that myself. I wish it didn't exist sometimes, but when we're hired, we have to apply those rules. So the assisted tricks, like Kelly said, was put together in order to, like, we need the dancers to focus on the dancing. And sometimes there's too much tricks, too much spin, 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 and it never stops. We need good dancing. It's a classic division. If you want to do tricks, do cabaret, right? So that's where it starts. Now, an assisted trick could be as simple as a split. So if a lady or someone, doesn't matter who it is, goes down in a split, and then someone brings that person back up on their feet, then it's assisted, right? Because you can't, I mean, there might be some special individual in the world that could get back up by themselves, but it's very unlikely. You can go down easily, but you can't get back up. So just something like that, it's assisted.
For example, something like a jeté that any of us could do on our own, but once your partner is there, maybe helping you to get a little bit higher or a little bit of a nicer leg line, if they're holding you up, even if you could do the jeté by yourself, if they're connected to you, then that's an assisted jeté.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's sorry to interrupt, like,
No.
because it's like, first of all, you said something right now that I was like, oh, you said we want dancing, and then sometimes we do spin, spin, spin. So are you saying that spinning is also tricks?
I think there's a rule, if I remember correctly, I think it's 8 phrases of 8 in a row spinning. You cannot do more than that. So there's a rule about how much in a row can you do spins.
At some of the competitions.
Oh, let me write it down, because we have to put it here. Yeah, I'll just, and then I'm gonna do a translation of this, like,
Yep.
and then like post it everywhere, because yeah. So one question, guys, did I spell that correctly? Assisted is with double S, or do I have to change that?
I think so.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
is
perfect. That's good. That's good. My grammar is my spelling is awful because I didn't study English in the U.S. I studied engineering, so no words needed there. So spins are like, there's some competitions that do have rules about how many A counts you can do spins, and that is correctly that's now that I'm remembering. And then so if something, you mentioned the word connected, because that's what I think, and people get confused, because at the beginning people used to say, if you can do it on your own, then it's not a trick. And it's like, no, if you can do it on your own but you're connected, then you're not doing it on your own.
But those are two,
right?
that there's a difference though, because if you can't do it on your own, it becomes an assisted trick. Now, those are for tricks, not necessarily for lifts. Example, you could do a jeté in an on-2 or on-1 division. You could do a jeté by yourself. You could do a leap. You can do a jump. But if you do the jeté and you're just like holding hands while doing it, then you're connected. So it kind of becomes a lift, because you're in the air while being connected. So that's where. So you could be in the air by yourself. It's not a lift. If you're in the air while touching, it becomes a lift, basically.
Yes. Now tell me about, I have so many questions that I have people ask me all the time. Tell me about some rules in some competitions talk about like over the shoulders, and under the shoulders. What is that like? What is that an example of an over the shoulder and under the shoulder? And how does that play into the rules or into the maybe the grading, the scoring system, or what does it impact?
I don't think like in any competitions we're involved in, I don't think there are any rules about over the shoulder and under the shoulder. I know in other genres of dancing there are things like that, like in country and swing and things like that. I know they have you could do low lifts or in some division or higher lifts in other, but in salsa, at least the ones we're involved in, there are no rules like that. Now, of course, if you're entering a cabaret division, it's kind of an unwritten rules that there like you have to do presses, you have to be higher than the shoulder and head tricks in order to get good scores because it's a cabaret division. So the level of difficulty has grown so much in the last few years that the tricks needs to represent how good you are as a dancer as well. Now in cabaret, the dancing is just as important. You can't just go there and just do good tricks and good lifts and do gymnastics. If you can't do salsa, it's not going to change anything. So you still need to be a good salsero, but if you want to win cabaret, the level of your lifts and tricks needs to match the level of your dancing, basically.
Yes, and I guess I could add to that. So we don't assign a score or give you more points the more tricks you do or the higher the tricks that you do. But all of these things are a show of your difficulty level and your technique and the quality of the choreography. Of course, there's lots of boxes that we assign a score to, but certainly the judges do know which tricks have more difficulty involved in them. Things like the way that you enter your tricks, the way that you exit your tricks, the height of your tricks, the speed of your tricks, the originality of your tricks. And the judges will be assigning a difficulty score and certainly having difficult tricks and lifts and partner work and dancing and everything that all applies to that. So I think that when people talk about how many tricks are above the shoulder, below the shoulder, they're just assigning kind of a value to difficulty, especially in a cabaret division.
And typically if you combine 2 or 3 different tricks together in the air, obviously that raises the level of difficulty, and if you do well, you get higher scores for that.
Okay, so then in terms of that, I have so many questions too. I better not forget. So a group of tricks on the floor, let's say, right? Because if it's a cabaret division, you don't have a limit of tricks.
Yeah,
but if you're in a classic or like non-cabaret, usually there are competitions where they have a limit of how many you can do, right? So what constitutes a group of tricks?
So it has to be, it's a question of momentum. It has to be, you could do something like a sweep into a head whip that goes into a split. As long as it goes in the same direction and it rotates in the same direction, it's like you're assisting one continuous move. Now they're different moves. They just go in the same direction with the same momentum and the same flow. So that would be one assisted trick. There would be one combination you're allowed to do. If you're doing a head whip and you stop and you change direction and then you split on the other side, that becomes 2 tricks. Even though they're back to back, the fact that it changes direction makes it that you're re-assisting the transition to change direction. So the flow and the momentum and the continuity of the movement makes it that it either makes it one assisted trick or multiple assisted tricks if you restart halfway through all the time.
Okay. In Mexico, we do have competitions, now that I'm remembering, where they give you a limit of tricks, but the tricks can be in the air as well. So for those, and that's what I'm thinking right now. So how would you recommend, because then they also count the grouped tricks, right? So, and it's very hard because judges here in Mexico don't know, but then they have to decide whether this is a one trick or whether this is too many, like this many tricks, and it counts up to that. So, for instance, how would you, if you were to judge a competition, when they tell you there's only 3 tricks, whether whatever, and then tricks can be grouped in in a unit, how would you apply that up and down in one same thing, coming up, coming around, coming up? Like, how would you judge that, or how would you say this is a group, and then it started becoming two different tricks instead of one group of tricks?
It's hard to answer because I'm not
Uh-huh.
familiar with those competitions. But
Uh-huh.
the first thing I would say though is, in competitions like that, there should be an invigilator or a head judge. There should be just one person that is there to decide if there's an infraction or not, if there needs to be a point deduction. As a regular judge, you're just there to judge the dancing and fill out the boxes. So as a judge, it's not your job to, at least in the competitions we work at, it's not each judge's job to apply penalties. The judges are just judging what they see, and there's one there, either an invigilator or head judge, that is there specifically to look
On
at
that.
what is illegal.
Yes.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
have another question. Let me see, because somebody is probably, yeah. I have a question. For classic division, do you recommend no assisted moves, tricks, as this would deduct points? Of
So-
course, for classic, is don't do tricks on the air, or like don't lift your feet on the floor. Is that what she's asking?
No, but I like that question. I like that question because I wanted to talk about that as well. Where in a classic division, you're allowed up to 3 assisted tricks. You're not allowed any lifts, but you're allowed up to 3 assisted tricks.
In some competitions.
In some competitions, yeah. Now, I find sometimes it's just not worth it. Like there's so many dancers that that are so good and do so well, and then they get a deduction and they lose, and then the audience doesn't understand why they didn't win, because they don't know that there was a deduction, right? But you know how sometimes, like, that couple has been good all year, and then the timing is right, and you think, oh, that's going to be their year, they're going to do well, and they're dancing, they're so good, and if it wasn't for that deduction, they would have won the competition. And I understand why classic dancers want to push the limit. You want to different yourself from the other competitor. You want to come up with routines that are harder, and come up with originality, and come up with something new. But if you get deducted, it's not worth it. Not worth it. There are couples that win, and I don't know if we're allowed to say names.
No.
But, okay, no. Okay. But there are couples I can think about that won the last 3 times the world championship on 2 and don't do a single trick. They do a split maybe sometimes, but they're just so good that they win anyway. And there are other couples that try to do our tricks. It's spectacular, but the trick is not going to make you win, but the trick could make you lose.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this in Spanish because I thought I'm going to translate this video anyway, but I think this is so important. Aquí está diciendo Eric y Kelly que a veces las competencias no necesitas poner tantos trucos, porque a veces si pones muchos trucos, quita mucho de tu baile en general, y también si el truco no lo haces suficientemente bien, es demasiado arriesgado y estás arriesgando puntos que no necesitas. También hablaba él de que hay muchos competidores que no meten trucos y aún así ganan. ¿Por qué? Porque su técnica competitiva es altísima, y eso es en lo que nosotros nos tenemos que enfocar. I'm going to ask you a question that is my personal question around this, and then I think, like, it just came up to me right now. Let me just put this. When I judge in the World Latin Dance Cup, they give us only 2 criteria to judge, right? So that you could just focus on that, right? So one of the criteria that I always get is technique, dance technique, right? So, and then because of that, I understand how to coach people, like on the tricks that they do, because to me, if you only do 3 tricks, that's when I'm going to see your feet. That's when I'm going to see your legs. That's when I'm going to see your posture. That's when I'm going to see how you hold your body. That's when I'm going to see your dance technique. And if you're in the air, same thing. The way you enter, the way you exit the trick is going to tell me your dance technique, right? And then I think I always tell my students, don't risk, if you're going to do tricks, if you only have 3, you're going to have 33% of each one of them is going to account for at least for your technique, right? So choose them right, because if you do the tricks, but you are like showing really bad technique, then that trick is not really going to be counting well,
Yep.
And I assume, my question is, does that also, the lack of technique in a trick, does that also affect the level of difficulty or something? Let's say, imagine somebody has like a really difficult trick and very risky trick, but it's all over the place. Their feet are like this. How do you
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
that?
I mean, that the concept of competition to begin with, there's multiple judges. So I don't think any judge should judge exactly the same way. So example, Kelly and I, we judge the difficulty box differently. I have my opinion, she has the opinion how to judge that. But for me, with what you said, Gabby, makes a lot of sense. Where if you do really difficult trick, but you don't do them well, for me, I'm not gonna give you a good score in difficulty if it's not well done. Just because you tried something difficult doesn't mean you're gonna get a score for difficulty from me. It has to be well done, right? Now, and also, I'm gonna repeat the last thing I said, because as I said it, I liked it. When I said, I said before, a trick cannot make you win, but it could make you lose. So if you make a mistake in the assisted trick, you get deducted. If you're great salsero, you get musicality, you got rhythm, you're beautiful dancers, and then you do a lift, and then your legs and your feet are crooked, that's not worth it. It's not worth it to do a trick if you don't do it well, and you're just gonna lose points. You're not gonna gain points, you're gonna lose points if you do that.
Yes, and I guess I'll add to that it is difficult to do something well. So it does factor into the difficulty and the technique box for sure. From my point of view, I want to see competitors being smart, but also being competitive. So I like to see you throwing the difficulty in there, and I like to see you really, really pushing it and making me feel like you're giving me more every time. I absolutely love that. But this is a competition, so the execution has to be on if you're in competition.
Yeah.
Perfect. Eric, did you say a trick will not cannot make you win, but can make you lose?
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. I'm definitely, yeah, I love it. I'm gonna put like a picture of you guys, and then a trick cannot make you win, but it can definitely make you lose. Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm gonna say it in Spanish. Eric acaba de decir algo que me pareció brillante y que todos tenemos que tener esta conciencia. Dijo que un truco no te puede hacer ganar una competencia, pero un truco mal hecho te puede fácilmente hacer perder la competencia. Entonces, esto no lo tenemos que tatuar en todas partes. Un truco no te hace ganar una competencia, pero sí te puede hacer perder una competencia si lo haces mal. Oh my God, I am in awe. Okay, very nice. Now let me go for, okay, next one. I think I already asked you this, but like, go ahead. As a judge, what do you look for in a competitor? Kelly, I think you just said it, like what you're looking for, but go ahead and just answer this, you guys. However you.
No, I mean, from a competitor, we're looking for the best representation of yourself and the amount of time that you're given. Show us the best that you have. Make sure that you fall within the rules of the competition, because as we said, some do have regulations, but I want to see the very best of you in that short amount of time. And, I want to feel something from the competitors too. So I want to feel that you love what you're doing and you're working hard and you're competitive. And then we will assign scores based on the different boxes that we have to fill, timing, technique, musicality, difficulty, choreography, all of the different boxes that we have to assign a number to. But yeah, I want to see you give me the best you got. And I love seeing people succeed on the dance floor.
And for me, well, obviously all of that as well, of course, but I want to see and feel that the preparation behind the routine. So if you're going to enter a competition, we have to pay attention to details. And I find sometimes, like you can tell if the routine was just finished the night before. If you wing something, or if your costumes don't match, or if you're wearing the same costume you wore in pro-am in the afternoon, or not that it doesn't really matter which costume you wear, but it's a matter of like the preparation. How much do you prioritize that competition? How much do you think about the details that comes around it? And if you're, like, I get asked that question a lot, how much does weight matter or aesthetic matter in competition and things like that? So
Okay.
my answer to that most of the time is it doesn't matter. But if 1 year a competitor is in great shape, and then you see him 6 months later and he's not in good shape anymore, or then it's the world championship, he's not in his best shape, you can tell that it's not a lot of preparation that went around that. If people just it's not about the weight, it's not about an aesthetic, but if you kind of gain weight and you don't take care of yourself for the next competition, to me, it means you don't take that seriously. It's not a priority in your life enough that it's not, for me, that's what I want to see in a competitor. What I look for in a competitor, that's written right there, is seriousness, commitment, and preparation.
Okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna take a little detour on this because you brought it up, and I think
Yeah.
it's very important. We know, and Billy is coming next week, but I still and I'm gonna ask him this question because everybody wants to ask. But yeah, about the weight, like the Salsa Summit has been known as a place where if you're fat, you're gonna lose or something. Even though like we just had Jeff from Huracan, and then they keep winning everywhere, even though they don't do tricks, and even though they're like heavy, right? So, and I have no filter. So tell me about this. Like, how has this been? Because I see a trend in this changing, but at the same time, I don't know. So what do you say about that? The aesthetic or the athletic level or the look of being thin versus being overweight
Yeah,
in
yeah. So
competition?
I hope I can say it clearly enough, but in my head it's very clear the way I think of this is, first of all, I think what we're trying to do now is to be a sport. So the dancers should be athletes. So that's the first. Second, now there's sometimes it's genetic, right? You can tell some people are just bigger than others. It's just how it is. So that's not a problem. Like aesthetically, I never mark down people because of a weight issue or anything like that. That's not a problem at all. Now, sometimes, of course, if you're not in the best shape of your life, that will show in your execution. It's gonna show some limitation in what you can and cannot do, or some things maybe you could do before and then you put on weight and you can't do as well. You're not gonna be as fast, of course. So there's a lot of elements like that to be considered where. If you want to be an athlete, you have to be in good shape. It's not, for me, it's not a matter of aesthetic. Again, I repeat that, where if you think of the Olympics, most athletes are fit, but if you think of the Olympics of people lifting weights, they're not thin, they're huge, right? Because they need to be strong. So it's not a matter of aesthetic. It's a matter of, are you at your maximum of your capability to maximize your abilities? Can you produce everything in your mind that you can do physically without limitation? So I think it's more that. I never use the word fat. You used the word before. That's okay. So it's not about being fat. It's about, can you produce and maximize your abilities in the physical condition you're at this moment in time.
But how do you feel that, like, I mean, I see that this is your, as a judge, that's not how you judge, right? So you're not deducting points. But do you think that's true for everyone? Like, if somebody wants to be a competitor, do you think they should focus also like on being fit, just so that even because there's people that can dance really well, and they're always overweight, and they can dance really, really well. would you say that the overweight can affect, maybe not with you, but with other judges, can affect their vision of?
I mean, I can't speak for other judges. I It's possible. I think sometimes we hear things. To me, it does not affect anything. If the dancer is great, regardless of how they look, I'm gonna mark it well myself. There's also culturally like different body types, right? Like different. So things are different. Like some female dancer can be curvier depending on their genes and where they come from, and of course we have to keep that in mind. Where it's just how they're built. So it's not doesn't mean they're not fit, and doesn't mean they're not in their best shape of their lives. It's just how they're built. They're not the typical supermodel type, you know. So it's not, that has nothing to do with that, because that becomes aesthetic. That does not matter to me. Is, are you in the best shape of your life? Are you fit, and can you execute? That's all that matters to me, at least.
Yeah, I'm there to judge people dancing personally. I'm there to judge how they look on the dance floor, and I'm also there to take a look at the product that they're presenting to me, and how well it's put together. So for me, I'm judging the dancing. Period.
Yeah, I think the same, but at the same time, like, I know that it's like what you said about tricks. Like, if don't risk it, because maybe out of 10 judges, one of them is gonna be like, oh, if I have to pick you or another person, then I'm gonna pick the other person. I'm gonna give the other person, just because of that little detail, right? So
Of
that
course.
sometimes plays into it.
That goes
Let
back
me
to
see.
the preparation to me, right?
Uh-huh.
You're gonna go compete. You need to, if you want to be a great competitor, you have to make sacrifices, and you have to, you can't party all the time. You can't eat what you want to. You have to be an athlete, just like every other discipline, every other sports.
Yes.
And nutrition and lifestyle habits becomes part of that.
Yeah, we like healthy dancers. We like to see dancers who are taking care of themselves and healthy, for sure, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm not competing anymore, you guys, because I need I like wine too much. Like, and then Billy said, "You can't be competing anymore. You're a judge. You can't be." I'm like, okay, but yeah, now I'm taking the word. Um, what advice would you give to competitors nowadays? Like, compared to how you used to see competitors be like 10 years ago, 8 years ago, what do you see a trend that you would like to talk to competitors nowadays and be like, stop that, or you're doing great, or go here, don't go here? Like, what would be the advice that you would give competitors, the new competitors right now?
I guess I can start and say, many years ago, there weren't so many competitions that were available. There was like, one or two competitions, in a time period. And now I think you have the great opportunity to do as many competitions as possible. And I would advise competitors not to judge themselves based on one result or one competition, and to continue to perfect what they're doing, and to continue to put themselves out there, and to judge themselves more over several results at several different competitions, instead of just preparing for one competition and that's it, and hanging all of the worth of that particular year or season on that one event. I would suggest to do as many as possible.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, yeah, for me, I agree. The more competitions, the better, like we talked before. But I do have 3 things on that particular question that when you send me those questions, that one made me think, and one of them is, I think you need a coach that you trust. You can have several teachers. You can take lessons with lots of different people. You can have several teachers, but you need a coach. And to me, there's a big difference between a coach and a teacher. And you need someone that you trust, that will give you the best advice for you, for your career, for you as a dancer. Ideally, someone that has been through it, someone that has been competing, and someone that most likely is now judging, so they understand exactly how it works. but you need to be able to rely on someone and have someone that if they tell you that you need to go dance on your head and you're going to win, then you do it because you trust that person so much, you know? So I think that's really, really important because you need, nowadays, you can't, you know, everybody's good now compared to before. Like there was a difference between the good ones and there was a big difference between the caliber of dancers. Now everybody's so good that you kind of need a team around you, a team of coaches and advisors and that people that kind of supervise you throughout the whole year to, if the goal is to do summit or Euroson, or like you have a goal in mind for that year, you train for the whole year, you do competitions leading up to it, you make a plan and you follow that plan with your coach.
Wow. Yeah, I think that I had thought about that, and then some other judges have said the same thing about like you need to take really need to take classes and take even your choreography. You shouldn't just like build your choreography on your own, especially if you're competing for the first time. But this is a very new concept, and I want to say it in Spanish because we have this issue that we don't believe that we need coaches. That's how it goes in Latin America, and I think it's very important. So I'm going to repeat this in Spanish. Eric se dijo que para el consejo que nos da es que contratemos personas para que nos coachen, contratemos coaches, que no queramos aventarnos hacia la brava y luego después estarnos lamentando de que por qué no gané la competencia. Kelly también habló de que tenemos que participar en todas las competencias posibles y que no te juzgues a ti mismo por el resultado de una competencia. Yo eso también les quiero decir a todos, por favor, no se juzguen. Perdiste Eurozone, no pasa nada. Tú síguele a la que sigue y mejor júzgate en comparación de todo lo que has hecho durante todo el año. That was magnificent. Both advices were great. I never heard the advice that you gave, Kelly. I never heard anyone say that, but I assume that you see that that's an issue because I assume that you see in the competitors how harshly they judge themselves for the result of one competition and then how that affects them in the long run, right? So that was lovely. Thank you so much. Okay, so now you already read this question, so I know that you have, and you're like super politically correct. but yeah, let's do this. How do you see the current dance competition scene in the world, and what do you think we could do to improve on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the competition scene right now is great in the way that it has grown so much. I just said before, everybody is like, there's so many good dancers. Everything is so competitive. Just being good is not enough anymore. You need the whole package. And now, like, I think I think we've come through a generation where, in order to really make a good career in salsa bachata, you need to be successful in competition nowadays. Like, I think our generation with you and us and before us, there were so many great, and they're still there, they're the ones judging now, but there were great artists that didn't compete, like Tito and Tamara and Yamule, and like, you know, they didn't do many competitions, but they were just so great that they became really successful. But now, I don't think people like that, I don't think it's gonna happen anymore. People need to go through the competition system to become successful, to become coaches, to become judges, and to train the next generation of competitors. So I think competition goes there right now. Now, what we could improve, you know, one thing that's been bothering me, and it's bothering me more and more, is that everybody is a freaking world champion nowadays. Like, everybody is a world champion. So, and you know, like somebody, I saw a congress down east in Montreal, and that they're inviting a guest. They're world champion. I don't even know who they are. Never heard that name. I won't say it, but I don't even know who these artists are. Apparently, they're world champions. Now, it doesn't mean they're not good. It's not what I'm implying at all, and it doesn't mean that because they don't, that they're not good. But you would think that if they're world champion, I would probably know who they are, but there's just so many different world championship everywhere. Anybody can just run a small competition in their backyard and call it a world championship, and then somebody won it in their backyard and they put it on Facebook, and now you're world champions. You know?
Mhm.
So ideally, there needs to be a little bit more uh, continuity, a better system that connects all the competition together a little bit more. And I don't
Mhm.
want to necessarily talk about syllabus. Like, I don't believe in syllabus or anything like that myself. Maybe an association, that's always always in the talks, but there needs to
Mhm.
be something connecting the dots between all the competition that eventually leads up to the ultimate title. Um,
Yeah.
like Kelly and I, when we were competing, the best result we've ever had was fourth in the world. And well, we got second in the semifinal, then we made a mistake and I ended up fourth in the final. But at the time, that was pretty good because there was one world championship. All the best dancers were there. So that meant something. At the time, to be fourth in the
Yeah.
world meant something. Now being world champion is almost not meaningless, but not far.
Everybody.
Right. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I agree. I hadn't thought about that. It's true. We used to be like, I remember when I competed at ESPN, I got fifth, and I was so happy. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm number five in the whole world.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Now it's like, if I get second, I get into depression,
Yeah.
because anybody gets first. You're right. And I
Exactly.
think this is something that a lot of people have been, I think this is something that everybody has in their heart, like what you said is bothering me. I'm glad that you also brought it up, because everybody is bringing up the same concern, and I want people to know that we, the judges, have the same concern. So it's not like we're trying to make it this way so that uh, you know it's easier for everyone, or so that each can get our own competition, and we don't want to agree on something because we have egos. It's more like we also are concerned about this, and we see the problem that is that there's, or the negative effects of the lack of standardization, but it's not an easy task, but we are concerned about it. So that's great. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I
You were
guess
going to say something, Kelly?
yeah, I would just add, for what I think could be improved in our wonderful dance competition scene, which I think overall is really really good, is as a judge, but also as a fan of my industry. Like, I'm looking for a champion, right? Like, I'm looking for somebody to represent what I do for a living and what I love. And for me, I'm looking for people that do this as their career, and that come back year after year and do a great job, and that they work on their partnership, and that they work well together, and that they're good to work with when you're working with them at a show, or when you see them in the hallway. They're a good representation of our industry. They're kind to the students. They're good to work with. They're a whole package. Now, what we're judging on the dance floor is what we see on the dance floor for the competition. But I love it when I see competitors coming back year after year and caring about their shows, and caring about their career, and caring about their students, and working really hard. And you can tell when somebody loves what they're doing and they commit themselves to it. It does show in their dancing. So I would just, I would really encourage our competitors to not just search for one result, but to search for a great, respectable career, and to be a great champion for our industry.
And something you just said that I like is, I was gonna say that earlier as well, is like, when I go back to the previous question of what I look for in competition, or the best advice we could give to competitors is, like, you're being judged all the time, meaning that we see you. If you're in the corner screaming at your partner nonstop, it doesn't look good on you. It may not
Mhm.
affect your score. When you're competing, if you're the best, I'm still going to put you first, but I'm not going to like it. But I'm still going to have to do it because of my own ethic. But I'm not going to hire you at my event, though, you know? So you're
Mhm.
always constantly being looked at. And there's one year that I was helping in the on deck area because I was a big mess. So I went there, I was in the on deck area helping around. And then there was that one pro, I'm not going to name names, but there's that one pro that was treating a student like terrible, you know. And then I went back to the table and talked to kids like we were considering hiring that person just because they're really cool dancers. We like them. And I told Kelly, like, we're never hiring that guy, you know, because it's not who we want to work with. So it's not just about the 2-minute routine you put on that stage, you know. It's about everything you bring to the industry. That 2-minute result will give you fame for that moment, but your attitude and your approach to the industry and to your students and to what we love and share, that can bring you work for the rest of your life, if potentially, you know.
That's a very interesting point of view, and I think that this also answers this question about like what's missing, right? What are we missing as an industry or as a scene? We are missing that part that is not only about who wins, because right now anybody wins, or not anybody, but like, you know, and everybody's so focused on the goal, and making us so focused on winning that trophy has made us perhaps forget about the other parts that are like equally important, right? Oh my God, yeah, that was really, really great. Now the very last, uh, what did I do? I erased that one. I don't think so. I think this was it. But yeah, I know what happened is that you guys are so nice that I feel like that you didn't get to the controversial answer. And this was a controversial question, but you guys are super nice. So yeah,
Well,
very good. But
Yeah,
what's the controversial part?
what's the controversial part?
no, it's like is that because what happens is that people around the world are concerned about like why is competition taking so much of the pie of dance, right? Like why is it that and then how this is affecting, because the dynamics of the whole dance scene have all moved into the competition, and then competition has made it's not very organized in reality. It's like everything that you mentioned, you know, the fact that all competitions are not all together leading up to a one big competition. That's one issue that everybody's concerned about, because the effects trickle down, right? So you as judges or as head judges of many competitions, how how do you see that this is affecting, but also what can we as people that have competitions or have like some say, what can we do to get together and then perhaps offer like a better future for the competition scene?
Yeah, there needs to be. I feel that um, like the role that Kelly and I have kind of been given over time by being competition coordinator, and then we judge and we do it all. We judge, we scrutineer, we run the competition. Kelly MCs, like we can really do the whole package. But then with all the competitions that were involved in North America, I think we've brought like, I want to say like maybe we standardized it where everybody that goes at any competition where Kelly and I are there, they know what to expect. They know how to prepare because there's going to be some continuity between all of those competitions. And then so I think in North America, most of the competitions have continuity that way. And I mean, the ones who involved it. There's other competitions, of course. I'm not talking about all of them, but I think for North America, we're involved with all the main ones. So that is a start for me. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that it's us that has to do it, that only us can do that. There needs to be more of that everywhere in the world. And I think it's probably a language thing because we don't speak Spanish. So I think like we've not crossed the border to your side yet to help with competition because we don't speak Spanish. So I don't help. But there has to be someone that can do that, that can work in all the competition and bring continuity in all the competitions so the dancers know what to expect and can prepare for the whole season and don't have to change their preparation depending on which competition they go to.
Yeah, having said that, we'd be happy to help him.
Of
the
course.
language isn't
Yes. Let's do it. I can translate, you guys.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can get team, three of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess
Yes.
yeah. I think the competitions need to be approached with professionalism, and we really try to. We have a great respect for the industry that we're in. We have a great respect for competitions and the opportunities that they give to dancers. And there's so much good there, but we really believe in approaching it professionally and with a great deal of respect for the competitors and for all the work and for our industry as a whole. And we're trying every event that we're a part of. We are trying to make an impact on the level of professionalism, and we work really, really hard to do that. Hopefully, there are many, many more people that are doing the same thing.
Yeah. Because there's a big difference. Sorry, once we go on that, we have so many things to say, but there's a
Of course.
big difference between organizing a congress and organizing a competition. And often it's the same people. So I think what we were able to do is a lot of congress organizers hire us to run their competition, and then they can focus on running the congress. We run the competition part of it for them, because it's not everyone that can do this the same way, and not everyone that
Yes.
understands all the rules. And it's not just because you're an organizer that you can run a competition.
Yes, definitely. And performance is different than competition in every level in terms of what it takes, what you should look like, what you should be doing in terms of your choreography, your everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. And then also how you should be promoting, who should be able to do a competition and who shouldn't be holding competitions. In Mexico, people have competitions everywhere and there's no requirement for it. And
Yeah.
then I'm sorry to keep you guys, but like there's so many questions I have, and I want people to listen to. Also, one thing that a lot of people have brought this concern about is that within the same competition, how come they can't just ask or they can't think of a specific of the same continuity of judging criteria or something. People say that within the same competition, you change the set of judges, and it's already a different grade. It's already like a different place. You place completely different depending on in the same competition. So people say that this is something to be looked at, and then we can improve on to at least within one competition, not even, I mean, let alone like all competitions, right? But like start with the same competition, have the same rules, and all the judges knowing the same thing, or I don't know, like something.
Sure. Yeah, I'm okay. So I think that within one competition where you have 10 couples who are being who are competing against each other, they're in the same competition. We don't rank, right? We assign scores. Certainly, it has to be the same judges judging those competitors if they're in the same competition. But within a competition event, if there's one category of 10 couples and one category of 5 couples, and it's different panels of judges within that, the important thing is that the judges come from their perspective all the time. So I always judge as Kelly, right? Always, all the time. I don't judge like Eric, I judge like Kelly. And as long as I'm consistent in the way that I mark, that's what matters. It doesn't matter that a 7 is the same 7 for me as it is for Eric. What matters is that we come from our integrity and from our specific knowledge base each time. I'm never going to judge exactly like Eric because I have a different set of training and experience, but I will always come from myself. So I think sometimes competitors confuse that a little bit. They think, oh, you know, if my score is different from one event to the other because of different judges. But as long as the judging panel is the same within your competition, it will be, each judge will do it for their own integrity.
And I think it's important that it stays like that in a way that if there's a change of judges, if the score is different, this is good. It's very good, I think, in my opinion, because this means that because it's not one person controlling everything. Because otherwise, it's one person deciding on the rules, and the judges have to mark what that person wants them to mark. Each judges that are there are qualified. Well, hopefully, if they're hired properly, they're qualified. So that's why there's more than one judge. Otherwise, if we just follow the same rules, there could be just one judge, and that's enough. There's multiple judges. Every judges have their opinions, and You know, sometimes I feel there's that thinking that the head judge controls what the judges do. It's not like
Uh-huh.
that.
Okay.
These judges mark what they want, and there's rules. The rules are the same for everyone, but the way I judge technique is different than Kelly judge technique, different than Gabby judges technique. You know,
Mhm.
so that's okay because we're not there to tell the judges what to mark.
No.
Everybody
Mhm.
mark what they think, and we'll make an average of that. Otherwise, it's gonna be. That's how we keep it fair. Otherwise, there's somebody
Yeah.
controlling everything, and we don't want that.
And I think that even makes everything better, because how you said earlier, right at the beginning of our conversation, you said a good competition or a good competition piece of choreography will make you win in every competition. So it's the same thing. Like if you have different grades, but you still win with, regardless of the judges, regardless of what panel, then that means you are like really doing your all, like making your all, you're doing your best, right? But if you depend on a specific judge that agrees with you, then you're not doing your best, because it is
Exactly.
not across the board. So yeah, I get it. Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. Thank you so much, you guys. I will translate this because there was so much I want all my Hispanics to listen to, and we already agreed that I'm going to translate your rules and your your stuff, and then we're gonna, make sure that you guys are coming here to Latin America, and then helping us with
Would love,
competition world that is
would love it.
growing so much here in Mexico. Thank you so much. Love you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye
Hello
bye.
to everyone in Canada. Bye.
Yes.
Love.
Bye bye.